Hello, my name is Michael Garrick, and this is PoppinCulture. Today, my guest is Caleb McCraw. He's a hilarious comedian. You can catch him in North Carolina, South Carolina. Soon to be moving to Texas, uh,
Tennessee.
Tennessee. I'm sorry, soon to be moving to Tennessee. But before he moves, or even after he moves, guys, if he's in your city, please check him out. He's hilarious. The topic he chose was crime, and we'll get into that in a minute. But whenever I have comedians on, I like to ask one question. A lot of people like to focus on bombing, but I'm more focused on succeeding. So, when was the first time you killed, and how did it feel?
The first time I truly killed was like probably I went to an open mic. It was probably I've been doing comedy like 3 months, and it was like the first time I had 5 minutes of material where I was like, but this is like legit. Like this is all like bits that I think It's all stuff that I still use to. And it was at the Tin Roof, and it was just like a random like open mic night. I was there. I just went up there, and everything hit just bam, 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 and then like big laughs. And I remember Shauna Jarrett, she runs the Tin Roof mic. She always would say, it's better to have a hot 4 than like a mediocre 7. So I only did like, I think 5 minutes of like the 7 that I was given. Just hit it, last big laugh. I was like, thanks guys, my name's Caleb McCraw. And, and then I went on stage and it was just immediate. Like, it was like, felt amazing. The first time I really killed in front of like a crowd though was you've done the Elliott Burroughs show, haven't you?
Just a
The
mini
mini bar,
bar?
the
Yeah,
mini
yeah.
bar one. Yeah,
Oh
you've done
yeah,
the mini
man.
bar show.
It's like a studio apartment. Fuck the Applebee's. It's
Yeah, it's like straight, like probably the size of a living room, and there's like 40 people that like pack in. The closest person is like if they're like sitting at the table, you can like put your foot like on their table. And that was the longest set I'd done in front of a paying crowd. And I did like 25 minutes, and it was the same thing. Like every joke hit. There was like, and I was pretty iffy going into it, I think. But like I was like so nervous going into it that once it started going well, I just started like rolling with it. And then it was like I got like some of like my best laughs. I still have it like recorded like audio
nice.
wise,
Nice.
and it's audio recorded. So, but it's pretty crazy. Like I mean, there's like people like there's like times people were like hitting the tables. And they were laughing so hard, and like that was like crazy because that never happened to me before.
Nice, nice. Have anything you done before, besides comedy, anything that if you done before gave you that same kind of feeling?
uh, I guess the one thing I can always compare it to is like hitting the sweet spot of a baseball with a bat. If anybody knows that feeling, it's like you're like sitting there and you just like feel it like go off. It's like it didn't even like hit your hands. It's like you just pushed it and it like landed that way. That's the closest way I can feel to like killing at a comedy show is exactly like that.
Nice, nice, nice. One question: when you did you had a 7 minute spot and you did 4 minutes.
Yeah.
But did the person after you like some places they get like really hard about time? Were they cool or like you had to
Well,
like
it
give it up?
was it was an open mic, so it
Oh yeah,
wasn't
that
quite
yeah
as high
yeah that's
pressure.
not at all. Yeah, that they didn't
Especially at
care.
an open mic. That's any advice I can give to a comedian is somebody who's only been doing comedy like 2 years. If you do really well after 5 minutes and you're really iffy about whether or not you can go another three, then just like peace out. Have people remember that you did that well.
Oh yeah, it's way better to go under than go over. Yeah,
Oh yeah, that's the other thing too.
yeah. If you go over, it's a chance you might not get that phone call again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool, cool. So the topic you chose was crime. Any special
Mhm.
reason why?
Well, when I like looked at like things that like I like pay the most attention to, like in a regular sense, like what do I watch the most like movies of? What do I watch the most TV shows about? What do I listen to the most podcasts, read the most books about? It's probably crime, like true crime. And like I think it's just something like as a culture and in America, like everybody's kind of obsessed with. It's like in everything. It's in like music, it's in movies, TV, everything.
Yeah. Do you feel like when it comes to let's say the love story side of crime stories, do you feel like Bonnie and Clyde was the first like love story when it came to crime?
Probably. They're probably like the first one that like I think America really like latched on to. Because I remember I read a book about Bonnie and Clyde, and they said like Bonnie and Clyde added a whole nother element to like the American criminal that like no one ever thought of was like the love story.
Hmm.
Because in the 30s you had a bunch of different criminals. You had like John Dillinger, who was like this movie star, good looks type of guy. He was like super like friendly and like he was on TV and like on the radio and like did interview him. He was super funny and nice. And you had like Al Capone, who was like all flash and like super rich. And then like you had these two people, these two like basically kids from Texas. and then like it was like a man and a woman, and it was like, you know, it's clearly like they clearly like loved each other, because like those photos and stuff that came out of them, like where they're like sitting on the car and like they're hugging each other, and like they're and like he's like and like Clyde's like laying back, and then like she's like sitting next to him like smoking a cigarette. It's like you can look at that and clearly tell it's two people who truly enjoy being around one another. They're not just in it for the money; they're in it because they like each other.
Yeah. Um, and just to stick on that time period, well, I think this may be a little bit before that time period. Um, Billy the Kid, just because he literally was a kid, how do you think that like influenced pop culture? Just that legacy of such a young guy, Robin Banks.
Well, it's the idea that like I think in America we've always kind of rooted for the. I don't want to say we root for the bad guy, but it's like we've always liked the idea that somebody does their own thing, even if it is going that far, like that much of a like that like extent of like being on the fringe of society. I mean, also people are just fascinated by like what they've never experienced or what they don't understand. And especially somebody who was that young. And also like the Billy the Kid story is fascinating too, because he was born to an Irish immigrant in New York City, and he ended up becoming like a legend in like New Mexico. And that's just like another thing that like people like to think about America. It's like, oh yeah, it's like you can come from anywhere and do anything, and people might know who you are if you really like if you were are dead set on doing that.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Yeah, I forgot all about that part. Yeah, he did. Like, that's crazy. Yeah, that's right. That's
He
true.
was born in New York. He moved to New Mexico when he was like 15, and then he just like lived there for like the next 6 years and like had this crazy life of like killed like I think they say he killed 21 people. There's a joke in the movie Young Guns, which is about him and like his like life. When he shoots a guy, he looks at the guy with him. He's like, "How many does that make it?" He's like, "I think 5." He's like, "We'll call it an even 10," and then he walks away.
Yeah. Um, the one fascinating thing about him is like he well, I don't want to say 100% proven, but I believe the things I've read, if that was a true, he was shot in the back. Like they made sure
Yeah,
they shot him in the back. Like it was no chance they were going to give him because he was known for being that quick. So
yeah.
it's like,
They were gonna take him out. They said there was basically like no desire to bring him in.
yeah,
But I mean, also he got caught and escaped before, and then like they were just like, he's dangerous. He's not gonna just sit here and wait on us to kill him.
exactly. Um, one person, and we'll talk about how crime has definitely influenced pop culture. But I wanted to stick on a few like big people before we get into the actual like crime itself.
Yeah,
Uh, do you think Robin Hood is like the prime example of what you would think of as a hero that's also does crime?
probably. I mean, Robin Hood's a guy who like all these people we just talked about have been compared to. It's just he's become like said because like they called John Dillinger Robin Hood. They said that Billy the Kid was Robin Hood. They said Bonnie and Clyde were. They said Jesse James was. Like Robin Hood's like he's also just a figure for people who are just like working class people. He's got the idea that like, you know, he doesn't let people get away with things that are wrong. Even if he does the wrong thing, he's doing the wrong thing for the right reasons. And we like to think that that's why people do that type of stuff. It's like it's not that you're just like a criminal and you're just trying to like get one over on the system. It's like you're doing this because you don't have a choice, and like the system is wronging you, so that's why you do it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, those are rookies. I was taught when I was in high school. There's like rookies use guns, professionals use contracts.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I
So
said that in
yeah.
The Godfather. Don Corleone says that to his adopted son. I can't remember the adopted son's name now. It's like skipping my mind, but he was like, he said a lawyer can steal as much money as 100 men with guns.
Yeah, he does. Wow. Yeah, he
Yeah.
does say that. Yeah. I don't know how that slipped my mind. Yeah, he did say that. Yeah, sure. Um, damn. Hmm, I don't know how I've missed that. Okay. Uh, uh, so when it comes to crime as an influence pop culture, I would like to. How do you think in the sub? I mean, not in the subgenre, in the genre of music. How do you think crime has really influenced music?
Well, I mean, there's so many stories about like outlaws. Like you can look at any genre of music. There's rock, there's country, there's hip hop, there's all these different things. Like in every single one of these like genres, like there's always like the story of the bad guy getting away. You know, whether it's like Dope Man by NWA or it's like trying to think of another one for like the like Copperhead Road by Steve Earle, which is about a guy who like goes his family like sold moonshine his entire life, and then he goes to like he gets a bunch of like marijuana seeds in Vietnam and he starts growing marijuana in the same places they used to make moonshine, and like it just continues this tradition that they've always had
Yeah,
of doing that.
that's true. I think well the bad guy loses, but I think my favorite when it comes to the genre of country would be Big Iron. I
Big
can't
Iron,
remember.
yeah.
Okay, you know you've heard the song. Okay, cool. It's just that's one of those
And then
things.
there's
That's
like
just,
Folsom Prison Blues too, which is kind of
yeah.
like a bad guy loses song where he's like just stuck in prison after he shot that guy, fish killed a guy.
I was so surprised when I found out like Johnny Cash has like a great cover, but that's not his song. Like
Yeah.
I thought, yeah, I thought that was amazing. Don't get me wrong, I did not. I think it's way better than the original. But when I found it out, I was like, oh, okay. All right.
Mhm.
Um, when it comes to like, you brought up rap. Rap talks about crime, like very upfront, I guess, more than any
Yeah.
other genre, in my opinion. It's one of the few things where I don't think others brag as much. Um, do you, in your opinion, do you think that's like helps like I remember in like maybe the early 2000s, late 2000s, that was one of the biggest things on how people got record deals. Like mostly every song I heard when it came to rap was like that drug dealing phase. Do
Yeah.
you think that, that kind of pushed rap to be where it is now?
Yeah, I think it did. I think if you look at rap now too, it's kind of like evolved from that point, especially even if you look at the people who made that type of music, like the G Unit group, where it's like the game, the game, Yayo, Young Buck, 50 Cent, like all of them. A lot of their songs in like the early 2000s were like, I sold crack, I did this, I made it, I was in the streets, I survived. And then they moved from this like idea of bragging about that to being like, that's the life that I live. But now I'm pushing past that point and I'm trying to like basically rise above where I was. I think a good example of that's like the song My Life by The
Yeah,
Game, where he's like, it's like, it goes from this whole thing of like, you know, it's like you start out with like his early work was all just like talking about the gang life he was in, the drugs he sold, and then like, and then you know, it's like, and then in My Life, it's all about like take me away from. He says like take me away from the hood, and he says take me away from something up to the penitentiary, and like all those things. And I
yeah,
think that's where rap music kind of evolved from. Because some people say like, oh, it's lost like its edge. I just think like the ideas of it have changed in a way.
yeah. Exactly. I think, and a lot of it, like I know he's crazy. I admit he's crazy, but I think a lot of that came with Kanye West because, like, at that time period, like Kanye really was the only one that was like, no, no, I don't do any of that.
Yeah,
that,
Kanye's like
that-
Kanye pushed rap music to be like the. He's like a lot more intellectual,
yeah,
which I
yeah,
don't think rap music gets a lot of credit for being, but it is pretty intellectual a lot of the time.
exactly. Like, if you don't think so, listen to Lupe Fiasco and like get a encyclopedia and
Yeah.
try to follow. Um, uh, you talked about like rock and roll. What songs would you have you heard that like kind of? I think you brought up one, but like, do you think they talk about crime a lot? Because mostly when it comes to rock and roll, when it comes to crime, it's usually them doing drugs instead of
Yeah.
selling. I can't really think of too many songs of them selling drugs.
Rock and roll is more of like the outlaw lifestyle, the idea of just like living life on your own terms, the driving your car fast down the interstate, you know, drinking in bars, getting in fights and all that stuff. Whereas as opposed to like taking part in crime, it's more or less embracing the type of lifestyle. It's like a fringe lifestyle.
Nice, nice. Um, okay. So moving from that to TV shows and movies, do you have a what's your favorite like genre when it comes to crime, like movies or TV shows?
When it comes to TV, my favorite crime TV show is definitely The Sopranos. I started watching that last year during quarantine, and it like hooked me. And I've already watched it twice since I like watched it through the first time. But when it comes to like legitimate, like just like things I'm fascinated with, I love watching true crime shows. Like I'll watch like any documentary about like serial killers, like you know, like some crazy like bank robbery, some crazy like criminal thing like that, like you know, drug empire, organized crime, anything like that.
Nice. One side question. We're not spoiling anything, but when it came to the ending of The Sopranos, like, were you mad or were you like, oh, okay,
Well, I I knew before I even watched the show that's how the show ended.
okay,
And I kind of was watching it and I was like, I can see if I watch this for 6 years through this progression, why I would feel pretty dissatisfied with that ending. But I've watched a couple different people like analyze it and they're like, well, you know, that's kind of how that life is. It's like, you know, you just there's no, sometimes there's no conclusion. There's no real like answer once it's all said and done.
Hmm. Sounds like a cop out, but I feel you. I feel you. Like that's good. I would love for the writers to be like, no, we didn't run out of ideas. We just said, that's it. The money ran out, and yeah,
Because I mean, they talk about that in the series and stuff like that. They talk about like, you know, when you get killed, it's like, oh, what do you think it's like? And a lot of them are like, I bet you don't even realize it happens. It's just like it goes black, and then
yeah, yeah, you're right. They do. Um, are you into like the forensic crime shows, like how they catch people?
yeah, I'm kind of like not. No, I'm not so much into like the forensic file stuff like that. I'm not really into like the process of solving a crime. I just like I'm more into the story like behind like why that stuff happens because it all happens for a reason. Nobody just wakes up one day and is like, I'm gonna kill somebody.
Yeah,
There's a
no,
build of like several things that have gotten you to that point.
oh, yeah, it's no like Joker stuff. Like, oh, I just had a bad day. It's usually a lot of bad days or a lot of, something or some kind of hatred. When it comes to, like you said, serial killers, those are worst of the worst. We can name a bunch of crimes that are worse. When it comes to like the serial killers, like movies or documentaries, which one do you like more when it comes to, all right, I really got to know this person?
Netflix always does a really good job. The Ted Bundy tapes on Netflix, I was really interested in because it kind of broke down like the idea that like he never came to terms with what he did. So like when they were talking to him, they had to talk to him like in third person. They would kind of sit there and be like, Ted, what would make somebody want to do something like this? And he just would be like, well, I don't know. It'd probably be a combination of things like this, and this. And they were like, well, what would you say if you were in that situation? And he was like, well, if I was in that situation, I would do this. And it's just like how you have to like dance around those topics with those types of people.
Hmm. Okay, I need to watch that. That's woo.
The Ted Bundy
Wow.
tape. It's like 4 parts. It's super good because it's about like it's like at the very end of his life they were trying to get because that's a lot of times what happens with these guys is like they've usually killed more people than like they say. Well, some
Yeah.
of them, the ones that are like I killed this person, like ends up being like 100 people. They're probably lying. But if a guy's like if like a Ted Bundy who's like no, I didn't hurt anybody. Like this is not all like a misunderstanding, but like it's clear that he did. It's like he's hiding and they try and get as much information as they can to like give some sort of closure and figure things out.
Yeah. I think the first serial killer documentary, this is years ago, but have you ever I think they're trying to do a new one. But have you heard of John Wayne Gacy,
Yes.
the clown killer? And that was just the fact that he had like so much plan and then like to get caught just so like his long game was to keep like bodies where he lived. And
Yeah.
that
The long.
just
Well,
yeah.
that's the thing. Ted Bundy actually had a quote about that one time. He said, the first time you kill somebody, it's all planned out. You have everything figured out. He said the fifth time you do it, you forget where you put your wrench when your car breaks down. It's just like, it's like you get to a point where it's just like so part of your everyday life that you just don't think anymore about like what you're actually doing.
Yeah, that's a scary thought. If somebody gets that relaxed. I mean, they've got away with it that many times. That's just
Another good one is the Iceman tapes. Have you ever seen those?
yeah. I haven't. Yeah,
The Iceman tapes is really good too. About
yeah.
for anybody that doesn't know, it's about Richard Kuklinski, who was a hitman for the mob, and basically he was essentially a serial killer who just got paid to do it because there's a quote in it where they say, "Richard, how do you feel when you kill people?" And he said, "I don't," which I think is like a crazy, like cold thing to say.
Yeah, but if you remember the numbers, it's not saying that would happen, but I don't know. It's kind of like when I don't know if you've ever thought about this, but I was like, my whole life I've always had like chicken, deer. Like it never hit me that like I'm eating another thing that was alive. It just,
Yeah,
it's just food. So, I can only imagine like someone kills upwards of that many people. It's like maybe it does just cut off and you don't realize like, whoa, I'm a murderer.
eventually you have to look at it because like he would say that he's like I just look at it as business. He said, he's like because I think he said that's how he separated from it. He was like, I in my mind said I didn't kill anybody that didn't deserve it. He's like they wouldn't ask me to do it if it wasn't important.
Yeah. And believe it or not, like I'm not saying names of course, but like a lot of military people, they are the same way. It's just like they would kill me. So this is, it's fair, you
Yeah.
know. So um, when it comes to we talked about documentaries, but when it comes to like the movies themselves, do you have a favorite like movie based on a crime
A movie based on like a specific crime.
or
I
serial killers? Like just like a crime movie that makes sense. We
crime
can go.
movie probably.
I'm sorry. We can start with crime and then we'll move to some other subtopics. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, my favorite like movie just about like a criminal like thing in general is probably Goodfellas. I think it's like one of the best like crime movies ever made. And I think it's different from like The Godfather in the way that like it has the love story of the criminal life where like Henry Hill truly loved doing what he did. Like he wouldn't have done anything else if he didn't have to. Whereas The Godfather is about like a family who's like the patriarch took this path and everybody's being brought along with him. And he doesn't necessarily want him to go that way, but it's gotten to a point where like that's all they know how to do.
Yeah, true. Mine is a weird tie, but it's Kings of New York and Takers.
Gangs of New York is really good.
Gangs. Yes, yeah.
Or,
I'm
or
sorry. Go
Kings of
ahead.
New York. Are you King of New York or Gangs of
No,
New York?
gangs. I'm sorry, Gangs of New York. Sorry.
Gangs of New York with Daniel Day Lewis.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yes. But yeah, that and Takers. And if you haven't seen Takers, don't worry about it. There's no reason to see it. It's not the best movie. It's that like Ti, Idris Elba, and the guy that played Anakin.
Oh, okay. Hayden
Yeah.
Christensen.
Oh, that's his name. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I know a lot about Star Wars too.
Nice. Okay. Next episode. Uh, so when it comes to we've been talking about serial killers, so why not? Do you have a favorite movie that's based off a serial killer?
Not really. Serial killer movies are kind of like hard to like make, and I've seen like a couple, and they're all just kind of like cheesy and like corny. I think Mindhunter does it really well because it flips it in a different way, where it's about like the people trying to figure out like why they're that way, and I think that does a better story than like showing like than like seeing like there's a movie called Ted about Ted Bundy that's just basically like a horror movie, except the guy and it's Ted Bundy.
Is that the one where the guy from High School Musical is playing him?
No, it's a different one
Okay.
because that one focuses mainly on the trial and things like that, and like it all just coming out like because like he got arrested twice. He got arrested once in Colorado and then once in Florida, and that's about the time he got arrested in Colorado. When basically they started figuring out like who he was and what he was doing. Then he escaped from prison in Colorado and then went to Florida where he got arrested again.
Yeah. He yeah, the way they showed the escape like was pretty much shot for shot, like how he really did escape in real
Yeah,
life, which I thought that was actually like, okay, that's a good scene. Like I was like,
yeah.
that was actually on point.
Mhm.
When it comes to serial killer movies, I think it is better when it's a work of fiction. Like you can use realistic like things that happen in real life, but like Silence of the Lamb or
Like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is like basically like a very very loose interpretation of Ed Gein. It's
yeah,
like things like that.
bro, his story, guys. If you ever get a chance, watch his documentary. That guy, wow, he is like wrong turn in real life, like that.
Yeah.
Oh man,
And
that
then, and the thing is too, like that's a proof of how you can respond to it. Like Plainview, Wisconsin, like leaned in like to that. Like they basically turned that town into like this is where Ed Gein's from. They like preserved his house so people can go see it, and it's like there's nothing else for you to do. There's nothing else there, so they just leaned in and like you can just like go see everything.
when you say like they kept the house the same, like there's like they took like it's just fake bodies in there now, son.
No, they left the house. You can't like go inside, but they're like, yeah, Ed Gein's house is right down the road. It's like, and you can like go see it. It's like because like they like demolished like John Wayne Gacy's house, and they like if
Yeah,
you like go to where he's from, like they pretend that they don't know what you're talking about.
yeah, exactly. Like they had to like dig body. Like yeah, I can see that 100%. Um, when it comes to like the movies that were like they do you ever feel like when you're looking at a crime movie, sometimes they're meant to be overacted, like Scarface, like good like decent film, but it's overacted like crazy. Do you like when those crime films are like overacted?
Yeah, I think because there's such big personalities that get involved in that type of life, anyways. That like it is, it's like I feel like it has to be as big as possible. Like the only time, like I think that's why The Sopranos went so well is because it was the first really understated like mob movie. It's just like guys sitting around and like they're talking. It's just like, so did you guys watch the Nets game? It's like, yeah. What'd you think about it? It's like, I think we can be better. And it's just like that was interesting to people because like back in the '80s, our idea of criminals was Scarface, where it's like they're these crazy people that deal cocaine and have tons of guns in their houses and tigers and all that stuff.
And their collars are like way too big. And
Yeah, yeah, big
and
collars and white suits, and they dress like the kings of comedy when they're
exactly.
on film.
Exactly. I love the fact that like when I was a kid, whenever I saw like a cartoon gangster, he had to have that like what like I don't know why, but every time they had to have that where we are gonna get like it's just
They all
nobody
sound
speaks
like
like that.
they all sound like Humphrey Bogart and something. They all sound like James Cagney from Public Enemy. That's the reason they all sound like that.
Yeah,
Because
true.
he was the first like criminal. That was the first criminal movie to really be popular.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay. Um with crime changing, do you think in the future there'll be more like movies based on scammers?
Scammers and hackers. I'm not sure because I honestly like when you watch movies, like criminals in movies are still like old west style criminals, just in like modern times. Like there's still guys that rob banks, like straight up, like with guns and like all that stuff. There's nobody like sitting at a computer, like hacking into it and just like wiring money because that's not as interesting of a story.
Yeah, true. You can't social network that. You're right.
Yeah.
Like what they did with Facebook, they had, I mean, it's so much real life drama that made sense. But yeah, you're right. It would be tough just to see somebody behind a keyboard every 3 minutes. You know,
I mean, there's obviously like people you can make movies about that did crimes like that, like Bernie Madoff or something. But I mean, like it has to be the person, not necessarily the crime, that makes that interesting.
that makes sense. You're right. The person does have to have an interesting story. Well, Hollywood can dress it up too, but you're right. The story is more important than the actual crime. Um, So it's moved on to other genres. It's actually, like you said, it is a podcast form now where
Yeah.
people talk about true crimes, and of course, sometimes they dramatize it. Uh, do you have a favorite podcast that does true crime?
I have a couple. There's one last podcast on the left. They cover a lot of like the doom and gloom, like serial killers, cults, all that stuff. But there's one that's a straight true crime one called Small Town Murder. My hometown Gaffney was actually featured on that episode 170.
Oh, okay, bro.
But episode
Oh,
170.
oh god, oh yeah, he's so proud. Like, hey guys, if y'all want to
Well,
know how,
I had been listening to that show for like a year and a half, and I knew the story that they were telling. It was about the Gaffney Strangler, and I was like, I know who this guy is. I was like, he lived down the street from my great grandfather. So,
word.
I mean,
Okay,
it's a morbid. It's like you said, it's a morbid fascination because like it's just how it goes. Like they did an episode about my hometown, and like everybody in my family listened to it. It was just like because it's crazy. But
you found,
every week they cover a small town, and then they do a murder in that small town, and that's basically just they tell the story.
wait,
It's
what?
two
Oh,
comedians.
I got you now. Okay, I thought when you said they do a murder, I was like, what? Let's not cry.
They cover a murder, and it's two comedians, so they kind of add like some like funny stuff into it too. It's James Pietragallo and Jimmy Wisman. Shout out to
Okay.
them. I actually sent them a message when they covered Gaffney and told them the story that my granddad lived down the street from that guy, and they responded and said that it was insane.
Nice, nice. Well, that's good that they replied. That's real cool.
Yeah, they do it, but like it's like a straight like true crime like story. It's like a straight like true crime podcast. Like because last podcast on the left kind of goes off on like little tangents and they'll do like skits and stuff. They'll be talking about like a murder. And they'll be like, yeah, it's weird how like guns work. And it's like, yeah, guns do this thing. And then they like start talking about that for like 5 minutes. But like small town murder is just like straight through.
Okay. Nice. Well, I'll definitely check that out. I
Mhm.
swear everybody has a better podcast name than me. Like bruh, like I'd be looking back like, man, PoppinCulture, that's the best I could do. Like this like, that's how clever my brain is. When it comes to when it comes to like crime, when it comes to wow, when it comes to take a shot every time I say when it comes to don't be drunk. Uh crime in the future. Uh do you think there'll be more restrictions on like, hey, they shouldn't tell their stories anymore? Or do you feel like it's already like inside of like pop culture where like crime and telling about crimes just go hand in hand?
Well, they already tried to cut down on that with the Son of Sam law, if you've ever heard of it.
No.
It's the guy for the Son of Sam murders in New York in the 70s, one of a pretty famous like series of murders. Word got out that he was going to try and write a book, and like he was going to get all this money from this publisher, that he was going to get this book, and then like he was going to make all this money, and like all these people, he's going to like tell his story, and like people were like, he has no right to do that. Just because he killed a bunch of people doesn't mean he should be famous. And then they enacted this thing called the Son of Sam law, where it's like you can't profit off of telling the story of your crime or something weird like that. But it's been challenged a bunch of times because, like, you know, you say that, but like certain people write books about their lives who've changed, and like through that law, you technically wouldn't be allowed to like tell that story in a way. Because like one a lot of people bring up is like the autobiography of Malcolm X, who's completely different situation. But like in that book, he talks a lot about his like criminal life before he found Islam and changed into who he became. And people are like, well, would you stop him from telling his story? Which I think it's kind of different with that situation. But yeah, I think, but that is something that's been brought up like a bunch, is like, do these guys have a right to tell these stories? Because also at the end of the day, like it's going to be misconstrued anyways. They're not going to tell what really happened. They're just going to make themselves seem like the best person they can.
Yeah. I love the fact that they're like, let's not make him famous, but let's also name the law after him.
Yeah, exactly. Name the law after him, exactly.
That's wild. Was there
But I
anything
mean,
else
even then, like in the modern like YouTube age, like there's guys like Michael Francis and Larry Lawton who are both like former criminals. Like Michael Francis was a mobster and Larry Lawton was like a jewel thief, and like they have YouTube channels and people will send them questions. Like Michael Francis has this thing called Mob Movie Monday, where he watches a mob movie and he'll tell you like how realistic it is based on like what he used to do. And then Larry Lawton will like play GTA 5, and like he's a former jewel thief, and he's like, all right, now if you're really gonna rob a jewelry store, this is what you need to do. He's like, this is where they screwed up, and this is what I would have done.
Nice, nice. I do like watching this show called At the Prison Show.
Oh
It's
yeah, with
just
Big Herc. Is that Big Herc? No, that's the other.
That's Joe Pera, I think. Not
Yeah,
Joe
Joe
Pera.
Pera.
No, Joe Pera is a comedian but I forgot his name. Joe Sub. But Joe, yeah, Joe is he the first episode I ever saw at the prison show, he was literally talking about like how to take a shower in prison. Like you don't use shower shoes, you're quick in and out. It was just like I didn't know it was instructions on how to like it's like you look straight ahead. And I was like, this sounds kind of like common sense.
That's what. Yeah, like I remember the Washington Post did an article about him, about like how like his YouTube channel had blown up, and I think it is too because like, and in America we just have a fascination with that type of stuff because like we do have like the biggest prison population in the world,
yeah.
and for whatever reason we do. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying that we do. And like, so a lot of people know people that have been in prison. It's just like it's a fact of life in America. Like you probably know somebody who's been there. And they said people like him kind of give a glimpse into that world without you like having to sit down and have an uncomfortable conversation with like your uncle about like,
yeah,
about
it's sad. It's super sad, man. And the reason why we had the biggest population is because of private prisons.
yeah.
Like once you have to like make money off something, people have to be there. So
Mm-hmm.
now it's like, why we have to have prison? We have to have people in prison. They're private. Like we have to make money. So now it's like, all right, we need people to be there where we don't make money, and it's a sad reality. But you know, Michael Jordan owns a good bit of private prisons. So if you steal his Jordans, you know,
He's making his money either way.
Yeah. So it's just it's a weird thing. We didn't even talk about that. Like when it comes to like, you know, with crime comes prison, it comes death. Um, when in your opinion, when you see something or you hear a story about someone doing crime and dying, do you ever feel like, man, I wish he got away, or do you automatically get that feel of like he knew what he got himself into, or you know what she got herself into?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I don't have sympathy for people who get into it knowing the consequences. Like if you decide you're going to rob a bank, you have no, at that point, like it's on you what happens to you. It's another thing if like you're driving with your friend and he's like, hang on, stop right here. I got to go talk to this guy. And then he kills him and jumps back in your car. And then you're driving away and you're just like, oh my gosh, what do we do? What do we do type thing? It's like, because at that point, it's a different story. I remember that's what this rapper from New York, China Mac, he did an interview with Vlad TV, and his dad was a snitch for the street gang that he was in, and he always said that like, I don't care if someone says that they saw something. He said, but when you're involved, you make a decision that you're involved to the end, which is how I kind of view that. Which I mean, that being said, if I got accused of something, I'll sit in a jail cell. I don't know what I would do either.
I'm not gonna lie, man. If my friend jumps out my car, kills somebody, and jumps back in the car, I have literally just became a hostage.
I don't know. If we get pulled over and I know I didn't do anything wrong, you better believe I'm in the next room like, I didn't do anything. I want to get out of here. What do you need me to tell you?
That's just a mind. Wow, that's mind blowing. I don't even know if I would ask questions. It would just be like, did that really happen? And then once they put the gun to me, it's like, well, I guess I have to drive. I'm not gonna die because I didn't drive. Yeah.
If you jump back in the car, I'm just like, all right, we're driving away. When we get where we're going, I'm changing past with you and I'm taking off.
Yeah, pretty much. As soon as I can get away from you, yeah, I'm not gonna be dumb enough to be like, yo, what just happened? And I saw what happened. There's no reason for me to ask dumb questions. Yes, I really think, and I'm glad that we don't. But I was reading a few articles on MSN. They really, 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 in some parts of the world, they really want to try to make movies about. And this is very uncomfortable. I hate the idea of it, but in some parts of the world, they really want to start making films about child predators, like child molesters.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't agree with that. Like, I don't want to see how they became that. I don't want to see, definitely don't want to see the act of it or anything like that. Of course, that's sick. But some people actually want to get into the mind of how they do it and put it on the big screen.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's personally sick. I don't.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a subgenre that can?
That's one of those things. It's like it's kind of too far. I understand like the fast, like because it's not necessarily. It's from a place like you want to understand it because like it's so removed from what any normal person would do. Like you just like you can't wrap your head around it. And like I think that's where that comes from is people trying to like just generally understand like what makes somebody do that. When it comes to like actually like acting it out and doing all that stuff, I think that's stupid. There's no like reason to do that stuff. Like they make books for a reason that you can just like write that stuff out. And if you want to read it, you
can. Yeah, that might be one. Well, I wouldn't even want to read it, but like it is not me judging anybody that wants to run, wants to get into that mindset or like why they do it. But it's just one of those things where I don't think it's an audience. I really can't imagine.
Yeah, there's not.
But
it's pretty crazy. Like, I mean, when Jack the Ripper was killing people in London in the 1880s, like he murdered like this one lady in this alleyway, and a guy had an apartment above the alley where you could see where the body was, and he was charging people like a nickel or like whatever the equivalent of like $5 would be to like stand at his window and stare at the body. And he would stand there with him and be like, all right, your time's up. You got to go to the back of the line.
Wow.
I know, it's great. Like we've always been this way. We don't think that we are, really.
I'm just thinking of the world without cable or like Netflix, and it's just like, you want to see like, wow.
I know it's like that dead woman's near Steve's window. He's charging people a nickel, and you can go look at it, and it's just like, I don't know, I ain't got nothing going on. It's like, all right, let's do it.
And then the idea that is 100% legal, like.
And it's just his house. He can do whatever he wants.
I'm pretty sure a cop can be like, "Hey man, close your window." Like, hey buddy.
But even then, like back then, they didn't really understand any of that stuff. They didn't understand like DNA and all that stuff. They didn't think about it.
Yeah, true. Yeah, no.
They said like when they'd find like when John Dillinger got shot, people like ran up and were like dipping like their sleeves and stuff in his blood so that they could like carry it away, and like they would like cut off the piece of their sleeve with his blood on it, like try and sell it to people on the street.
Well, look where we came. Look where we came. Yeah, man, if you go back in time, bro, like it's hard to believe people weren't millionaires, at least a thousandaires. Just like there's so many ways to like make money. They're like, if
It's
nobody
great. I
asks
mean, they've always done
questions,
that too. Like they carted around the car that Bonnie and Clyde were killed in, like to like county
yeah,
fairs and stuff, and you could look at it.
yeah, that was one auction that like I'm pretty sure whoever was there was like, I got plans for this.
Yeah, like you got that car, you knew what you were gonna do with it. You weren't gonna fix it. Oh, that point you weren't gonna.
No, oh, you could you really?
No, it got shot like I think like over 100 times. I know
Yeah,
that. So
yeah, like you bought that just for that main reason. I'm pretty sure he made his money back plus more.
mhm.
Um, what's one crime topic that you haven't seen touched on or talked about that you would like to see?
I think one of like the things that's like not been talked about a lot. I just think it's because there's not enough time like between now and then, which they kind of have on like Narcos and all that stuff. Is like crime in America in like the 80s, like during like because I think that's the closest we ever got again to like the Wild West. Like if you like look at story, like if you watch Cocaine Cowboys, the documentary, it's like there were like people like shooting each other in the street with like AK-47s. It's just like you would just be walking down the street and then like you'd see like 3 guys jump out of a car and 4 guys jump out of another one and start shooting at each other.
Yeah, that's wild. That's
Mm-hmm.
that's wild. Hey, if you think it's wild over here, like in Japan or China, like where like it's super illegal to have weapons, but like
Yeah.
just at a certain point in time, like people you literally just shoot Uzis in the crowds just because they had to get
Yeah.
their enemy, and it's just like I don't know if you ever fired a Uzi, but like it's not meant to be aimed; it's meant to be sprayed, and that's just a
Yes.
scary idea. Like that's a
Yeah. I mean, that's just what like that's just what they did. That's all that's.
yeah, like it's just it's so different. Is there anything else you would like to add on to the how crime has influenced pop culture?
I don't know. I think it's one of those things like it's always existed and it always will. Because people try and like say that like oh it's disgusting that people would watch stuff like Mindhunter and like it's crazy that people they made a new doc they just released that documentary about the Cecily Hotel in
Mhm.
LA, which has got a crazy story. So many people have been murdered there. Like Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, lived there. There's this guy from Austria, Jack Unterweger. He was a serial killer in Austria. He came to LA and killed like 4 people in that hotel, and then like went back to Austria, and it was like, and then that just recently that Elisa Lam woman went missing, and they found her like in the water tower of the hotel. Like that just got released like 2 months ago, and they're just now releasing a thing about John Wayne Gacy, and everybody's like, I can't believe we still talk about this stuff. But I mean, in 1888, a woman got killed in an alleyway, and a guy said, "I'll give if you give me a nickel, you can look at the body from my window." So I just think it's never going to go away.
And that's the perfect example of what we do now. We that's you're right. That is the perfect example. We watch and just people were willing to pay for that, and but people are still willing to pay for it, and that's crazy. Uh, last but not least, man, I wanted to bring this up. I almost forgot. Do you watch shows like Stamped?
No, I don't. What's that? I'm not sure.
Is long story short, my ex-wife used to watch a show. I think it's on Lifetime. No, it was on Ocean
Oh,
Network.
snapped
Yeah,
about like husbands or women that kill their husbands and all that stuff.
bro. And I say she was like, I caught her watching it, and I literally was like, "All right, I'm sleeping on the couch tonight. This is if it's any
Yeah,
sign,
there's certain things you like watch and you're just like you feel weird like when your roommate's like sitting there watching it and you're just like I'm gonna sleep with my door locked tonight. I'm not gonna have this.
yeah, yeah." Because the worst part was she was like, we was just chilling at home. She's like, I gotta catch up on my episodes. I'm just watching it with her. And this woman is the woman that like murdered her husband. Like she planned like months in advance, like poisoning this guy, like the long game. And
Oh
just so
yeah.
happened, we had lasagna that night that my ex-wife cooked, and the guy that she was poisoning was eating lasagna on the episode. And I just like, I was like, oh no, I was
Go
like,
take
not
some
like,
Ipecac whenever you get done eating.
yeah,
It's
I was
not
just like,
fun.
I was like, not like this guy, not like this. Like,
There was a small town murder episode where they did it was in, I think it was somewhere in Florida. This guy this family, they had done something to him, and they didn't even know that he was bothered, that they were like, it was like their kids were making a bunch of noise every night because like they had like dirt bikes and stuff like that, and like it bothered him so much. And what he was doing was he was bottling Coca-Cola in his house and putting it in their fridge. And like obviously, like when it comes to Coca-Cola, I live with I live with three other people. Like if I go down there and there's Coke in the fridge, I don't think about where it came from. I was like, all right, I'm gonna drink a Coke. But he was like poisoning it and like trying to kill them slowly. He only killed like two of them, but all of them got sick and they couldn't figure out why, because it was a specific type of poison that back in the day. Now I think they know what it is, but like you had to be looking for it to find it because like there was no trace of it in your body once you like ingested it. And it was just a crazy story because I was just like, that's insane. Like that can just happen.
Something that can be dealt with an easy conversation.
Yeah.
And he was like, "No, I'm gonna play the long
And then
game."
like they got into like this dude's life, and like he had done stuff like this before. Like his roommate in college had like done something to him that was like not a big deal. It's something like you can like obviously be upset about. Like he like had taken one of his like taken like a pack of his like paper or something like that, and he was like, "Hey man, like I was gonna use that." And the guy was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I needed it." And it's just like you can have, but like instead of doing that, like he like put LSD like on the doorknob, so when he grabbed it, he like started like flipping out.
I mean, it ain't worth killing nobody, but oh, okay.
And that's what we call escalation. When you start doing something like that, if someone does that to you, you need to keep tabs on them because they're not just gonna not do it again, especially something that conniving and diabolical.
That reminds me of the comedian that oh man, he was on Joe Rogan's show. Every he did something to Brett Kreischer. I think he
R.A. Shafir.
Yeah, that
put
guy.
Molly and Burt Kreischer's drink.
Yeah. It was funny because like the first time I ever heard of him, he made like a horrible Kobe Bryant joke, and then they were like, "Oh, if you think that's bad, don't leave nothing around this guy."
Actually, you may want to delete this out because I don't know how this will go in terms of people ingesting it. Well, he used to do these things called the Amazing Racist videos, where like he would dress like a Klan. He would dress like in a Klan outfit and go to like a black neighborhood and like try and get people to give him gasoline. And he'd be like, "I have to go to a meeting later. I need this gasoline or something." And it's just like it's crazy. He was insane back in the day. Like it was wild.
I tell you, buddy, we can make it big as comedians. I'm telling you, bro, we can do it.
I know, right?
We can make it big as comedians. I tell you, that is wow.
I know it is. It's wild, right?
What year was this? If you don't mind me asking.
It was the early 2000s. I remember I saw it on YouTube when I was in like middle school, and it was literally like my friends were like, "You got to see this guy. He's crazy."
It didn't look staged at all.
Nah, he was legit just walking around. Like he went to like this like dry cleaner and had like a little robe in there, and he was like, "Hey, can you clean this?" And he's just like, "Yeah, what is it?" And like he opens it up and it's like the hood and everything. He like holds the hood. He's like, "What the fuck is this?" And then he's like,
God, man, even Borat didn't go that far. That dude goes hard. Like that guy goes hard in the paint, but that's wild.
Yeah, I'd cut that out there because I don't know how people would respond to that because I thought it was funny, but I don't want people to think that I thought that was funny because I just thought it was funny because it's insane. You're just like, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen someone do.
Yeah. It's wow. Well, man. Do you really want me to cut it? I'm asking you now. Do you want me to cut it?
Yeah, I think you should cut it just in case. Okay, cool. I don't think anybody would care. I just don't want somebody who doesn't know us to like see that and be like, "Oh, they think that's funny." It's like it's not funny. It's just insane.
Yeah. Okay. All right. This is gonna sound like super awkward, but like I gotta make a. I hate like I love when I do it during podcasts, but it's weird too. So I'm about to like talk in a way where it doesn't sound like I just cut. Okay.
All right.
But yeah, I think that's interesting too, man. That's a great way to look at it. So okay, that won't work either because I literally just asked you something. Oh, good. Ah, man. Nah. All right, give me a second. I tell you, buddy, stick with audio podcast. Don't ever do a visual podcast. It's fucking horrible. If I go back, this will not be visual. These cuts are just audio cuts. You can't even tell. Visual is like, oh, I thought they were just moving ahead over here. But yeah, man, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast. Is there anything
Mhm.
you'd like to say to your fans?
Nothing much. Just you can see me different places. I don't know. It's hard with COVID. I'm trying to figure things out now. I've gotten to a point where I'm starting to get on more shows that are like not in Charleston, which is pretty cool. But I mean, you just gotta figure it out from there. I'm trying to get a good base of like shows underneath my belt and like people that like I've done shows for and opened for before I move. That way I can kind of move and like jump right in.
Nice, nice. Where can they follow you on social media?
Follow me at Caleb underscore McCraw on Instagram and then just Caleb McCraw on Facebook. So I don't have like a comic page or anything. It's just me.
Nice, nice. Well, thank you so much for coming on to the show, man. And you guys have an amazing day.